So I know X-Men Apocalypse hasn't been released to the public yet, but I'm looking at the score on Rotten Tomatoes for it and how other critics are reacting, and all I gotta say is, really? Like, I know it's still got a ways to go before it's released, but with the score it has right now, worse than X-Men 3? Are you serious? X-Men: The Last Stand is the third X-Men film, the first one not to be directed by Bryan Singer. Instead, it's Brett Ratner. Boy, what a way to improve your franchise. But the story here is that a cure for mutants has been discovered. There are several mutants out there in the world that are not happy about this, and one of them includes Magneto, who forms the Brotherhood of Mutants and decides to go after the source of the cure to stop it once and for all, but it's up to the X-Men to make a last stand and stop Magneto from harming any humans. Now, the reason Bryan Singer could not do X-Men 3 was not because he felt like he needed to leave the franchise, but because he was too occupied with Superman Returns, or as I like to refer to it as, still better than Zack Snyder's Superman. So he didn't really want to leave the franchise, but he was busy, and Fox refused to wait for him, so they decided to hire Brett Ratner to direct the movie, which I don't know why you'd even do that. And I gotta be honest, while X-Men 3 is a bad movie, it never really descends into the level of bad that X-Men Origins Wolverine is, because that movie was absolutely insulting. It was hard to watch. You want to claw your own eyes out. This is bad in the sense that it's just dull. There are a few cringeworthy moments in the movie, but there's nothing on a whole that makes me go, this is god-awful. Before I really get into why this is a bad movie, I want to say the things that I like about this movie, because there are a few things that I like, which is more than I can say about X-Men Origins Wolverine. One thing I really like is Beast. Beast is played by Kelsey Grammer here, who is kind of like what I imagined Beast to be in the comics. And yes, I have actually read a few X-Men comics. And when reading Beast and seeing Kelsey Grammer on screen, I go, yeah, that's kind of how I imagined him in the books. And while Nicholas Hoult does a really good job as a young Beast in the prequel movies, Kelsey Grammer is more of the Beast that I'm familiar with from the comics and the 90s cartoon. And the final battle is kind of fun to watch, admittedly. It ends in a very anticlimactic and unsatisfying way, but at the very least, there's some cool stunts here and there, there's some creative things going on. So it wasn't a total waste of time. But the rest of the movie is just very One thing I really don't like is that there are relationship issues going on with Rogue and Iceman. Because Iceman started to grow more attachment to Kitty Pryde, who here is played by Ellen Page, which comes out of nowhere because in X2, we never got a sense of relationship issues. Okay, from Rogue's end, yes, because she has trouble with the fact that her powers can hurt somebody. She wants to be able to be Iceman's girlfriend without killing him, but we never saw anything to indicate that Iceman was falling for another girl, especially since this movie was actually the first introduction to Kitty. I mean, in the past two movies, there was a mutant walking through walls, but they never identified her as Kitty Pryde, and she was just there for recognition. So this whole thing absolutely comes out of nowhere, and it kind of goes nowhere, and it does lead into a really cringeworthy scene where after Charles Xavier dies and they have his funeral, later that night, Iceman and Kitty decide to go ice skating on the school's fountain the night after the funeral, which is cringeworthy in the sense that they suddenly feel like, hey, we're having some romantic feelings right now. Let's go ice skating right after the funeral of the person who brought us in. And it's trying to be adorable, but given what just happened before, you can't get into it. It's just like, this is really inappropriate at the moment. And the script itself is very mediocre. The plot itself actually had the potential to have some good ideas and some good political elements in order to go deeper into the movie, sort of like what X-Men and X2 had. But here, it's not really laid out thoroughly and is often sidetracked by just action sequences. One of the things that kills it is that we understand the bad guy's motivation, that we're the superior race, we cannot allow this cure to get out and for mutants to accept it, but we never get a full sense of the good guy's side. We don't really know if they're for the cure or they're against it. It's really just blundered. Unlike Captain America Civil War, which took both sides of the coin and really laid out each side to make you go, okay, I can get why you're doing this, and I can get why you're doing this. This movie butchers that element so bad that I found myself siding with Magneto at points and go, yeah, stop that cure, Magneto. Kill all humans. Wait, I'm a human. Whatever. And speaking of killing, they kill and depower a lot of characters. They get rid of Cyclops, they get rid of Professor X, they depower Mystique, and even Rogue depowers herself just to get back with Iceman, which, again, that thing goes nowhere. It's almost insulting. I mean, okay, yeah, X-Men Origins Wolverine is still the worst, but there are a few elements in this movie that are a bit insulting, especially if you're fond of these characters. And two really cringeworthy moments that I'm just going to round things off with is that why do Magneto's henchmen look like they just came out of a Hot Topic? I mean, I know that the X-Men are dressed in leather, which is fine because it's supposed to be a substitute for the bright and flashy costumes in the comics. But with Magneto's henchmen, they have tattoos, they have piercings, they have netted shirts. It's like, what the hell is this? Like, did Magneto at one point decide, I need to find followers to help me with this cause? To the Hot Topic, Mystique! It just bugged me. And one last cringeworthy thing, which really I don't need to go into that much. Do you know who I am? I'm the Juggernaut, bitch! When I rewatched this movie for this review, and that line came up, I was like, oh my god, that is so horrible. So I'll wrap things up. X-Men 3 is just a bad movie all around. It's not downright insulting from beginning to end. There are a few insulting moments and cringeworthy moments throughout this movie, but on the whole, it's just kind of a bore fest with the exception of a few parts in the finale. The plot of the film is muddled, you find yourself siding with the villains more than you do with the heroes, and what they do with Jean Grey in the movie is really stupid. Like, I'm not familiar with the Dark Phoenix storyline at all, but I'm pretty sure the Phoenix powers that Jean has extend beyond a simple stare. Like, every time she unleashes her powers in this movie, she just stares at something intensely and shit around her happens. It's just stupid. So with X-Men 3, I'm just gonna say don't waste your money on it. And with this movie being 10 years old, I think it's pretty obvious that you just kind of skip this one, especially after the events of Days of Future Past. So just don't waste your time with this movie. And if there was one more positive thing I could say about it, this is kind of a backhanded compliment, and I've said this before. X-Men Origins Wolverine came out 3 years later, which made this movie look like The Dark Knight by comparison, so at least there's that. But that's my review for X-Men 3. I have one more X-Men movie to review, and we'll get to that next week, and I'm looking forward to reviewing that one. But until then, I hope you enjoyed this review. I can't wait to hear what your guys' thoughts are on X-Men The Last Stand, if you've seen it. Like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends. Don't forget to check out my official website. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, SoundCloud, Periscope, and Rift.tv. This is the real Mr. Robinson telling you there's only one.